Hi, I'm Charles Welch. I was born and raised in Northwest Ohio. For nearly 50 years, Toledo has been the place that I call home. The history of Toledo has become one of my passions. Some people say, let the past stay in the past. I say, let the past guide us to the future. Join me on my journey to find out who we were and how we got to be who we are. This is Untold, the hidden stories of Northwest Ohio. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Untold. I'm your host, Charles Welch. In February of 1921, a local criminal by the name of Joe Urbatus and his gang of more than a dozen thugs pulled off the greatest robbery in Toledo history. Now, they didn't rob a bank or the jewelry store. They robbed the post office. Toledo's Central Post Office was located in a building on the corner of Madison and 14th, which is commonly known today as the Jefferson Center. It was at this very location that they robbed a postal truck of federal bonds and cash in what would be known as the largest robbery in Toledo history. Today we're joined by Ted Long, who's going to walk us through what we need to know and understand about this $1 million robbery. Here in the corner of Madison and 14th, in between Madison and Jefferson, and I've been past this building a million times, but of course my good friend Ted is going to tell me something that I never knew about this building that I've driven past a million times. First of all, good to see you.
Good to see you, Charlie.
Okay, what is it about this place? I know this place as the Jefferson Center.
That's right.
And it used to be the post office.
Central Post Office.
Okay, and that's it.
No, that's just where the story starts.
Okay.
This is a good one.
Okay.
This to me is like when you think about the 20s and you think about all the graft and all the riffraff that happened in Toledo, this epitomizes it right here.
Okay, so it's something to do with the post office?
Yeah, this was the Central Post Office. This was a grand building in its day.
Okay.
I mean, it was designed by the chief architect for the federal government.
Okay.
Beautiful federal design. If you ever get a chance, wander around this building. Beautiful relief work. There's some eagles on the side of the building. There's lions on the side of the building. This was the Central Post Office for Toledo.
So it's a big deal?
Big deal.
Okay.
So in February of 1921, actually around midnight, February 17th, a group of guys follow a payroll truck from Union Station, and they roll right into this loading dock area. They climb out of their stolen Studebaker, pull their guns and get everybody on the floor, and they pull out $1 million in the biggest robbery in the history of Toledo.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this breaking news. Robbers have gotten away with close to $1 million in what's being called the crime of the century. It all happened in Toledo, Ohio, wherever that is. A postal truck was followed to the main post office and held up at gunpoint. The robbers stole cash and a number of federal bonds. The robbery is being investigated by the local police, and suspects should be considered armed and dangerous. Now, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program, and make sure to drink your Ovaltine. This is KDKA Pittsburgh.
Wait, what year was this?
1921.
So in 1921, $1 million is like $12 billion today.
Actually, 12 million.
Is it really?
So 12 million. Really? So that puts it in context how big it was. You imagine if someone stole $12 million today, what a deal it would be?
So right here?
Right here.
Right here on this loading dock?
Yep.
Okay, I gotta go look. Can we go?
Let's go check it out.
Okay, so they stole the car from here.
Yeah, they stole it up on Collingwood from a parking garage a couple days before. Rolled into here, following this postal truck that had just come from Union Station. Put everybody on the ground, loaded up about 10 bags, and walked away with $1 million. It was partly federal bonds, mostly federal bonds, and then there was also a hold of cash, real cash, that could be spent pretty quickly. So they disappear off into Madison Avenue into the night, and they show up a couple days later on a train on their way to Chicago. Federal government came in along with the Toledo police, and these guys were on the train flashing money around to the women, and they picked them up, I think, in Elkhart, Indiana. The guy who put this thing together was Joe Urbitis.
Okay.
And Joe was kind of a Toledo small-time crook, but a big-time thinker, you know, to come up with an operation like this. And his sister Wanda was on that train as well. They didn't find her on the train. They think she might have hidden a ceiling or something in the bathroom, but when they went through the train, she wasn't there. She ends up in Chicago with part of the money, part of the loot, and she gives it to a priest in Chicago that she happened to know, who was actually the former priest at St. Hedwig, and the family knew him. And so the whole story just has twist after twist after twist.
And everything happened right here.
Right here.
Right here. Were there witnesses?
There were witnesses, yeah. They said they saw the car kind of careen off 14th and Madison right behind the truck, and then everybody popped out with their guns and off they went. It was very smooth.
I honestly can't believe, I'm getting nervous sitting here because I'm picturing this car careening around the corner.
Yeah, right down in here.
Did they have a violent past at all?
So Joe was actually a pretty violent guy. In fact, his first crime was when he was age 17. He was convicted for throwing pepper into a guy's eyes and then stealing like $175 off him.
Oh.
So that was his first recorded crime. And then about a few years earlier than this crime in 21, he pulled off a very similar operation and robbed the Hebner Brewing Company payroll truck. And here's the twist that gets you back to Wanda again. At that time, Wanda was a telephone operator for Hebner Brewing. And she knew when the money was being shifted around for payroll. She hooked all the guys up. And the story goes, on the day that they did that robbery, and they got about 38 grand out of that one, and actually beat up the guy who was driving the truck. That was a little more violent than this one was. But the story goes that it was all planned to go that day, and she actually left her operator station, said she had a headache and wanted to go get some aspirin. She was trying to catch up to the guys and let them know, don't do it today, there's going to be more money tomorrow. So Wanda
was smart.
Yeah, quite the gal, yeah.
She was a good person to have if you were into that thing. Now, this building, you said it was important. So it had to be extremely busy, but this occurred at night?
This happened at night, yeah. So it was like perfect crime in that sense. You know, you didn't have a bunch of people on the street. The witnesses, I suppose, were mostly just workers here. So yeah, it was well planned and well staged. I mean, stolen cars, so there was no way to trace it. But what really gave them up is when they got on the train, and Joe had told them all to keep the money closed, you know, but they were flashing money around and it was over.
Couldn't help themselves.
Yeah, so he eventually, and the whole gang, gets brought back here. And before he can be even put to trial, he breaks out of the Lucas County Jail. He disappears and he's gone for 3 years. The other guys get convicted, they get sent away. Joe's nowhere to be found until 3 years later. He gets in a gun battle with the Columbus Police Department, gets shot, spends a few weeks in the hospital, and he eventually is convicted and he gets sent to Atlanta Federal Prison.
This just in. Joe Urbitis, a criminal mastermind behind the $1 Million Robbery in Toledo, Ohio, has been captured. I repeat, has been captured. Joe and his crew were found on a train headed to Chicago, where the local police and FBI caught up with the scoundrels. They were all arrested and brought back to Lucas County Jail, wherever that is. A short time after that, Joe Urbitis managed to escape from said jail and has been on the run and causing trouble ever since. Definitely not the type of guy you want to owe money. That's all we have for now, folks, but we will keep you posted as this case evolves. Now back to our programming. This is KDKA Pittsburgh.
One thing I forgot to mention is most of the money came back from the crime, except they never found his cut. And rumor has it he may have used some of that to smuggle in nitroglycerin, guns into the prison, where he makes this dramatic breakout attempt. And he almost gets out until a ladder they use to climb the wall is too short for the wall. So gig is up. He's now labeled trouble, and he gets sent to Alcatraz.
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz was built at that time for all these gangsters that were escaping from prisons, and that's where Joe ends up. And being, again, the smart guy that he is, he realizes once he's there, he's in solitary confinement, and, you know, there's no chance. And he decides, I'm going to try good behavior. So he actually gets out early and eventually gets released, and then comes back to Toledo, goes right back to his old ways, opens a supper club, the Bon Air Supper Club, over on the east side, and he's eventually shot to death there in a gang-related activity. And that's the end of Joe Urbitis.
So he went back to his life of crime. and ended up getting gunned down.
Gunned down in his own supper club.
I've got to ask, what happened to his sister?
So Wanda's a great story. She obviously, the priest that she had given the bonds to made witness, and you know, she was pretty much cooked. She got sentenced to 7 years. I think she gets out a little bit early. We found her in the census in 1930, living in her mother's house, the house that she grew up in, and then she just disappears. So we assume she either changed her name, married, maybe moved out of town, but no more crime either, and probably no more telephone operator jobs either.
That's probably going to get her fired for what she was doing. That is so interesting to have all of that right here, and not just in this building, but right where we're standing.
Exactly.
I mean, Toledo's history is so incredible that now, at the time when they took that money, that had to be one of the biggest.
New York Times labeled Wanda the queen of the $1 million robbery. You know, this was national news. This was a big deal. Everybody in the country knew about it. And when they were convicted, it was headlines. When Joe went to federal prison, big headlines. And when eventually he was killed in the 40s, another big headline kind of closing out the story, the last chapter.
Did the rest of the gang go to jail and stay in jail?
They mostly did. Joe did break out with another fella here when he was in Lucas County Jail. And I'm not sure what happened to that guy, but I'm pretty sure he was captured pretty quick.
He's pretty cool. I mean, not to glorify what he did, but he's a pretty cool little escape artist.
Interesting guy and interesting family, you know. So, but I still like to say Wanda was the brains behind the whole thing.
Well, Ted, man, thank you again. I mean, I really appreciate it. Every time we get together, it's like opening a present. I don't know what's going to come out, but I know it's going to be something great that I love.
Yeah, and it's all Toledo.
It's all Toledo. It's where we live, and it's our hometown, man. So thank you again, man. I really appreciate it.
Glad to do it.
I'm looking forward to the next time, man.
So am I.
I know it's going to be something really, really cool. Thanks so much for joining me on another episode of Untold. I truly hope you enjoyed what you learned today. Who would have thought? $1 million robbery right here in our own backyard. It just goes to show that these stories can sometimes get buried. We just have to dig them up and unearth and tell their truths. For BCAN, I'm Charles Welch, and I'll see you next time on Untold, the hidden stories of Northwest Ohio.
Untold, the hidden stories of Northwest Ohio, is brought to you by Holy Toledo History, an archive of stories dedicated to Toledo's past. Log on now at holytoledohistory.com. It's spring, and your time is now. Realtor Charles Welch will handle your every need. Just choose Charlie.